You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where we bring you some super special, awesome humans from around the globe. Today is another day of those special occasions, baby. Another day to celebrate because another awesome human being on the show. My goodness. Social innovator, speaker, activist, and humanitarian with a brand new book, friends, a brand new book. And this wonderful guy, he created media back in 95. My goodness, 1995. So my goodness, Windows and this wonderful man right here, founding his own company, Chocolate Mousse Media. My goodness, like you already know, the host likes to make a bunch of chocolate jokes. This is going to be definitely a fun time. And his wonderful company is a hybrid social enterprise making for-profit television series and not-for-profit media campaigns. And this wonderful gentleman right here, in addition to all of his other wonderful accomplishments, established a television production companies in Canada and Asia, as well as partnerships with the Royal Family of Malaysia. You heard that right, folks, the Royal Family of Malaysia, the News Corporation, and UTV of India. And heck, even the Archbishop Desmond Tutu said of this wonderful gentleman right here that we need efforts like yours, a powerful communicating tool to encourage people to change their behavior, and outstanding contribution. So let's give it up for this wonderful gentleman right here, Mr. FK himself, Mr. Firdaus Kharas.
Hi, Dom. Nice to be here.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thanks a bunch for setting aside some time to be on the show and share some of your wisdom, because I'm pretty sure you got a whole country full of wisdom with the life that you're living right now.
Well, it's an unusual life, yeah, that's for sure.
Oh man, so what makes it unusual? Because my goodness, not every day that somebody actually delves into writing a book on creativity and actually producing positive media to actually inform people on what they need to know about.
That's true. There are relatively few people doing it in the world. I've been doing it for 25 years, and it all started, I think, with my early socialization. I was born and brought up in Calcutta, in India, and then lived in Bombay. And when I was in Calcutta, I met Mother Teresa many times when I was about 8 years old. And I think looking back, that she had an impact on me. I still remember her. And I think that looking back, I got the first taste of working outside of one's comfort zone for the benefit of others. And that early socialization in India, I then went to Pennsylvania and then came to Canada for grad school, has led me to what I do today, which is basically use mass communications to better the human condition. So I work on issues like diseases prevention right now, of course, on COVID-19, but I've worked on HIV/AIDS and Zika and malaria and many others. I work on human rights, children's rights in particular. Do a lot of work for refugees around the world. So in this way, I use media to try and get behavior change in people so that they live a better life.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's what I'm talking about. Mass communications to better human condition, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And that's something that we all need. And you've been doing it for such a long time. And heck, even meeting Mother Teresa more than once. My goodness. At the age of 8, no less, dude. Like,
Yeah.
like my man's got to feel extra blessed to meet her.
Well, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of famous people and good people in my life, and they've been an inspiration to me throughout my life. And you mentioned Desmond Tutu in your introduction, and he was certainly a person He is a person I greatly admire, and it was wonderful to meet him. He's been a supporter of my work, and a lot of my work has been used in Africa, particularly on issues like HIV/AIDS and malaria prevention. I've dealt a lot in Africa also on sexual and domestic violence, particularly in countries like Congo and Nigeria, where my work has been used. So Africa has been a focus, central interest of mine for a long time in the work that I do.
Wonderful indeed, wonderful indeed. And the beautiful thing is that's a couple of the countries in Africa. So what drew you to Africa in particular, where a lot of your work seems to be mentioning from so far?
I mean, Africa is a wonderful place. I think once you go to Africa, it gets under your skin and it never really leaves you. You're drawn, you're drawn back and back to it. I'm from Asia originally, and American educated, Canadian educated, and now a Canadian citizen, and live in Canada. And that's why I love, by the way, your title, Going North, because we are the Great White North up here.
Nice.
Yeah, but basically, Africa is both a place that needs assistance and is a place of great opportunity. And I think that it's been a real pleasure for me to go there, to visit countries there, and to work with Africans on the ground to help them help themselves, basically. I started going to Africa after I graduated from university in Boston, Pennsylvania, and then in Canada. I went to graduate school here in Ottawa, Canada, where I am still at Carleton University. And I did my master's thesis on a draft convention against the use of torture. And then after that, I went to Africa for the first time. This is in the early 1980s. And I even wrote a book about the country of Togo. I wrote another book on immigrating to Canada. And then I worked, I was the head of the United Nations Association in Canada for 5 years. I worked for the Minister of Employment and Immigration, as she was then called, as a policy advisor on refugee issues and immigration issues. And then I joined the Immigration and Refugee Board, and I cleared a refugee backlog along with 50 members from coast to coast in Canada. And many of them, of course, have come from around the world. There were refugee claimants in Canada from 115 countries. There were about 128,000 claimants that came in the backlog, and I helped clear them. So from that, I started a media company, but a media company with a difference, a media company that drew on my background in international affairs and having been brought up in Asia and having traveled a lot. But a media company that doesn't do normal for-profit productions, but does a lot of what we call animation for social change. And that has been used extensively in Africa. And that experience in creativity over the last 25 years, making this media, is what led me to my book, which is called Creativity, the Key to a Remarkable Life.
That's what I'm talking about right there, creating a wonderful, remarkable life. And it's really great that you're able to get all those travels in, and heck, even getting that media out there that folks really need to hear about. And heck, even this being not your first rodeo in terms of the book writing piece. So what led to the topic of creativity for you?
Well, I think creativity is at the forefront right now of everybody's mind because of COVID-19. We've had to rethink everything. We've had to apply our creative thinking. I mean, I think that's the one good thing that might come out of COVID-19. We have remembered, we have realized that we are one human family after all in COVID-19. It doesn't matter what language we speak, doesn't matter what religion we are, doesn't matter what ethnicity we are, doesn't matter which country we live in, we've all been affected by this pandemic. And this pandemic has forced us to rethink everything in our personal lives. Many of us have had to deal with new relationships, to deal with our children at home, and so on. And then our professional lives, of course, many of us are now working from home instead of in an office. Companies have had to rethink how they reach their clients, the people who buy their products or their services. They've had to rethink how they get their supply chains and the impact on their supply chains. So a lot has changed. A lot has had to be rethought in COVID-19. And so I think that 2020 has proven without a doubt that creativity and the ability to think creatively is the most important element of our lives. It's the most important skill set that we need. So what is creativity? Creativity is the ability to think differently via a mental process of original thoughts that leads to the creation of new ideas. And many people think that they're either born with creativity or they're not. They think that some people have a talent, for example, for painting or writing or composing music or designing, and they're only creative thinkers. Actually, I don't think that's true. I think we're all creative thinkers. And what I want to do is show everybody, that all your listeners, that they are highly creative thinkers, and that you can use creativity to get what you want, whether that's happiness in your personal life, or landing the job that you want, or finding a solution to a problem, no matter how big or small the problem is. So what led me to write the book was simply to give back a little bit of what I've learned over the last 25 years in using creativity.
That's what I'm talking about. And I'm so glad you made the distinction between creativity and just painting something because I feel like that's where a lot of people make the mistake. It's like, oh, I'm not creative. Well, if you get desperate enough and if your back is against the wall, like this pandemic of COVID-19 is basically pushing us to do, then you're going to get creative. And it really has pushed us over the edge to really think about new ways to get together, like with folks who usually do religious gatherings, like doing more virtual services, especially those that like to stay archaic. It's like, all right, we got to do this online now. Oh, we got to do a conference call. And some folks, it's like the whole supply chain thing, like you mentioned earlier, it's like doing different ways of getting products out there to people. So that's really powerful. And it's good that you actually getting that in the forefront and getting folks to realize like, hey, you have creativity. It's within you.
Oh, we all have it. Just think back to your childhood. You know, we're all creative when we're young. We all sing, we dance, we paint, we use our imagination. All of us are creative human beings. We lose some of that ability to think creatively when we go through school, because particularly in high school, we tend to, this educational system tends to suck some of the creative thinking out of us. Then when we become adults and we go into the workforce, we worry about what other people might think. We worry about peers, we worry about failing. And the ability to fail is part of being a creative thinker. You have to embrace failure. You have to know that you can fail and that you won't be judged because of it. You have to know that you have the ability to fail, and it is creativity that will allow you to get up after you fail and go on to the next thing. So we become very cautious as adult human beings, and we don't always apply our creative thinking. Yet, you know, there are studies done over and over again. There's an annual survey done, for example, of the world's largest employers, and they ask, what is the one skill, the most important skill that you're looking for in a new employee? And the answer for the last 5 years, out of all the skills I can think of, is actually creative thinking, the ability to think creatively. So I think that that all of us are creative human beings. And what we need to do is now come back to thinking creatively. So what does that mean? What is thinking creatively? It's a transformational thought process. Thinking creatively is having an open mind. It's the best part of thinking, of using creativity, is that it'll make you think in a much broader and more inclusive and open-minded way. So a creative person sees and hears and feels and thinks in a very different way than a narrow-minded, non-creative person. And you'll become more self-aware as a creative thinker. You'll discover yourself and the world from a new perspective.
You can say that again. And it's really great that you listed that skill as something that employers desire out of prospective employees as creative thinking, because it's so darn true. It's like with this whole new era where staying the course is never an option. You have to be able to adapt. Like creativity is a must. So with your experience in creativity, what's helped you to really stay creative? Because like you mentioned, with high school, we go there and that's really where creativity goes to die if it's not nurtured. So what's helped you to really keep that creative juices going or that creative muscle going for you?
Oh, I do all kinds of exercises to make sure that I'm creative and thinking creatively. I also work in the creative field. Obviously, I create media that's highly creative, and I have to use creativity to reach hundreds of millions of people, despite the various barriers that we have to communications that we all carry around. Barriers like our culture and our history and our geography and our ethnicity, and what nationality we have and so on. So I have to get around all these barriers that all human beings have in them. And that takes a great deal of creative application. That takes a lot of creativity. And let me give an example. I can think of many examples, but I, for example, said in my book that I have a problem tying my shoelaces and getting them to stay tied. So I've been going through different ways of trying to tie my shoelaces. Now, even if you are quite good at tying your shoelaces, well, next time you have to tie shoelaces, try and tie them a different way. Or if you're wearing socks, reach out and instead of putting on the same pair of socks, take two different socks and put them on. These are silly little examples, but they will open your mind to thinking creatively. And it doesn't cost anything to do that. It's just a method, a little way, an exercise of getting your mind to do something that's new. So if you're going to take a photograph, let's say of your spouse or your partner or whoever, and you're going to take the normal photograph you will normally do. You make them stand somewhere. You put them in front of a background that you want to take. Okay, that's a normal photograph. Take that photograph, but then zoom into their eyes, or zoom in just to their nose, or even better, go and get something funny for them to hold. Go and get a plant. Go and get, I don't know, fly swatter. Go and get your toilet brush. Go and get something funny for them to hold. And that's applying creative thinking. That's newness. That's something you've never done before, or your partner has never experienced before. And you'll have a lot of fun. You'll have more fun in life if you open your mind to creative thinking, because that's what creativity is. Creativity is expression. Creativity is curiosity. Creativity is all around you. Creativity is what grabs you. Creativity is being different. It's the unusual. So next time you go and buy a piece of furniture or you buy some clothes, and you always buy black suits or brown suits if you wear a suit. Well, reach out, buy a bright blue suit or some other kind of suit. Or next time you go and get a car, don't just think about a black car or a white car. Think about a blue car or a red car or a yellow car. Just in this way, you can go through life, having much more fun and expressing yourself creatively. And I think that also you can do that much more, perhaps even with great impact on your life if you do it in your professional life. Because no matter what work you do, the people who succeed in life are great creative thinkers. They're the people who rise to the top. They're the people who become leaders. There's no CEO of an organization or a company that is not a creative thinker. They have to know all the facets of their company, and they have to apply creative thinking all the time. And the best companies are the ones that apply creative thinking and therefore get the result of creative thinking, which are innovations. And that's what keeps them ahead of the game.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And you're so darn right. It's really just that light little switch that really can light a spark in your creative muscle. Like, hey, getting a nice bright blue suit as opposed to always the classic black suit. It's like, hey, get something different. And the whole two socks thing. I mean, that's actually not a bad idea because, I mean, socks, who's going to pay attention to socks? And with social distancing, it's like, who cares?
Yeah, and and if somebody does notice that you're wearing two different socks, they might ask you, and you say, "Yeah, I actually did that intentionally today because I'm trying to expand my mind to think creatively." And you should too, and you make that other person perhaps a creative thinker as well. Creativity is not logical thinking. It's the opposite of logical thinking. It is in the other half of the brain. It goes with imagination and it goes with intuition. It goes with curiosity. So these are not logical thinking. It might be logical to just wear two of the same socks, but once in a while, it's good to be creative. It's good to just say, okay, I'm not going to do that. And, next time you put your clothes on, put them on in a different way. I mean, put the colors together that you've never done before. Put the items together that you've never worn before. Just expand your mind and keep doing that in your personal life, your professional life, and you'll get much, much further ahead. I guarantee you that you'll whatever your definition of success is, you'll find it easier to reach your destination of success if you open up your mind to becoming a bigger creative thinker.
Yeah, you can say that again. You can say that again, indeed. And like, even the beautiful thing about it, you probably know it better than me, is that once you expand your mind, you actually can't really go back to thinking small again.
That's right. You can think small, and it's just a different way of thinking. It's a transformational way of thinking. It's orienting your mind towards newness. That's
Mm.
what creative thinking is. And it doesn't mean that you have to throw out all your habits. I mean, if you you know if you get up in the morning and you have a coffee every morning and you have a shower and then you go to work, well, it doesn't mean you have to change everything. It just means that you can still do all those things. But if you do want to change your habits, if you do want to get rid of some unwanted habits, then in fact, applying creative thinking or thinking creatively is the way to do it. That's how you get new habits, and that's how you will change your habits that you now have.
You can say that again. You can definitely say that again, indeed. Because like habits definitely are really the bricks of where a lot of things start. Heck, even where a lot of things can finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about the world's biggest companies, like Apple, for example, is the world's largest company by market capitalization today. Well, um, it's it started in a garage. It was a small company, and you know which company had the first idea of making a mobile phone and creating the mobile phone? It was Motorola. It wasn't Apple or Samsung. It was a company called Motorola. They had the idea, they applied their creative thinking, they produced the first telephone, and then they didn't keep applying their creative thinking. So it became in the market that a company like Apple and Samsung and the others that came along later that did apply creative thinking, that came up with the innovations and took over the market from Motorola. So there are millions and millions of companies that are examples like Motorola in the world where they don't continuously apply their creative thinking and ultimately they will die. So if you're in a company right now that doesn't include creative thinking, that doesn't have the right environment for you to be a creative thinker, it's probably time to look for another job because that company is probably going to die, especially in the age of COVID, where everything has had to be rethought and where creative thinking has had to be applied to every aspect of a company.
Oh yeah, you can say that again because COVID's like the Grim Reaper on steroids right now. It's leaving no prisoners, taking none of them. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, since this is far from your first rodeo on this topic or even being interviewed, is there a question that you wish you would be asked more often when you're being in the hot seat, metaphorically speaking?
It's a kind of tough question, but people have to understand, how do you apply creativity? How do you become a creative thinker? And why should you? And the answer, let me take the last question first. Why should you? We all have our own definitions of success. Some people think that billionaires are successful. Some people think that leaders of countries are successful. Some people think that, famous movie stars are successful. It's true that they're all successful, but that doesn't include everybody's definition of success. You don't have to become famous. You don't have to make a lot of money to be successful in life. What is success is what you define success to be. It's your own definition of success. And how do you get there? How do you, once you define your vision of success, how do you actually move from where you are today to, at the end of your life, looking back on your life and saying, yeah, I did the most I possibly could. I was successful. I, had a great family. I achieved what I wanted to in life, whatever your definition of success is. It is creativity that'll help you get there. And the reverse is true. If you're having problems right now, if you are having some problems, either financial problems or problems in your relationship or problems at work, again, it is creative thinking that'll get you out of the problems. Because one of the best things you can do as a creative thinker is to apply creativity to solving problems. And in fact, I have a whole chapter in my book on problem solving with creativity, because creativity reduces stress and anxiety. It is finding new approaches to problems. It leads to you finding all your problems. It leads to solving the problems because you look at every angle of a solution. There might be many solutions to your problems, not just one. And so if you apply creative thinking, you'll come up with different solutions. It promotes flexibility and it solves the most difficult problems. The only way you can solve the most difficult problems, in my opinion, in fact, is to apply creative thinking to that problem to get to all the possible solutions and then to find out which is the best solution and apply it. So I do think that if you want to be successful, apply creativity. And on the other hand, if you're now having problems and you need to get out of those problems, also, that's one of the best examples of applying creative thinking.
Sweet, love it. It's even better that you have a whole chapter dedicated to problem solving, because that's something that everybody needs and desires, whether they believe it or not, even if they got their head in the sand. Like, we all need to become better problem solvers. We can do it after picking up your book. And Nick, I love what you mentioned there about creativity helping you to deal with stress too. So is there any creative ways that have helped you to deal with any possible stress you may have had to deal with over these past few months with the whole COVID nonsense going around?
Oh, well, here we are. You and I are talking to the world through your podcast using Zoom, which is a company that's become much bigger and well known because of COVID-19. It's a good example, I think, of what has changed. I mean, many of us had never heard of Zoom before. I hadn't until the last few months. I'd used other platforms in the past, but not Zoom. So I think that a lot of things have changed and will continue to change as we go through COVID. Some things will return back. Personally, I'm hoping I can start traveling again because I have not been stationary for this long since I was 16 years old, actually. So I would love to start traveling again. Some things will come back, I think, but some things won't. I don't know if all of us will keep going to offices every day like we used to. I think that the way we work is going to change in the future, permanently change because of COVID-19. But even after COVID-19, I think the way we interact with each other is, especially in the work environment, is going to permanently change. Some of us will go back into offices, but some of us won't. Some of us will work from home. Some of us will work from home part-time and in an office part-time. And some of us will never go back to an office. So things will change. The way we interact with each other, social interactions will change. I think very large scale things, going to massive meetings or mass amount of people gathering together, that might change, even permanently might change. The way we travel might change permanently. Where we travel to might change. We're more likely to travel domestically and within our own countries and closer than going all the time around the world, halfway around the world. People will still do that, and they should still do that. But I think that a lot of things will change as we go forward. I think 2020 was a real watershed year for the history of the world. These things happen once in a while in the world, world wars, for example, both World War I and World War II certainly changed the world. And I think COVID has changed the world in 2020. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But I do think that we are going to need a lot of creative thinking to get us out of the economic downturn that we faced because of this pandemic. And some of that will be actually for the good. I think that a sense of belonging together as one human species on this planet, living together, has increased in the era of COVID.
Oh yeah, you can say that again. You could definitely say that again. And heck, even parts of the pandemic are probably even needed, so folks would be forced to actually not only get creative but change things for the better, because folks are actually taking the time to think, do more thinking, and doing some more cleaning. And heck, there may be in some moments in their lives today, it's like, you know what, maybe this needs some cleaning. Not downplaying it, but just looking on the positive side of it. And it's great that you're looking forward to all the more wonderful things that await. Hopefully, when we can do some more traveling again, because I know my man's looking to get to Australia in the near future.
Yeah, I've never been to Australia, so I'd love to go. But I need an invitation. I need some reason to go. But yeah, it'll be fun to go.
Yeah, that's right. Well, enough couple of my past guests on the show are actually from Australia, so maybe I have to see if there's a fit somehow for you.
That'll be neat.
Woohoo! Well, coming down the pike here to the magical question that everybody gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're at 25 again, but this time in 2020 with all of your knowledge, experience, and there was no pandemic, what advice would you give to yourself?
Not to take life too seriously, to have fun in life, to express myself as an individual, to be true to myself, to look in a different way at the world. I do deal with some of the world's biggest problems, like sexual violence and so on. It's easy to become pessimistic, which I'm not. I'm a very optimistic person. I think that I would tell myself, go through life having as much fun and thinking in the broadest possible way, knowing that nobody has to be perfect. Nobody has to be perfect in this life. I don't think there is any perfect person, and I certainly don't think of myself as a perfect person. But I do think that we can design our own lives. I would tell my 25-year-old self, set out a path for yourself, design your own life. Don't just drift, don't just go with the flow. Actually set out what your life, what your ideal life is like, and try and achieve that ideal life for yourself.
There we go. Solid as a rock right there. Solid as a rock. Definitely don't take you too seriously. Yes, indeed. Because some folks do tend to take things a little too seriously and they end up being so darn stiff that someone might poke them and they break, metaphorically. Oh, man. Well, that's what I'm talking about. So, for those who want to keep in magical contact with you, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Well, they can buy my book on Amazon, of course. But beyond that, if they go to my website, which is Chocmose, CHOCMOSE.com, you can get the book there. You can give us your email and stay in touch that way as well. If you get the book from my website, you pay the same amount, you will get a personalized signed copy from me. But of course, if you're used to going on Amazon or all these other platforms around the world, are carrying my book, and you can order it from any other platforms that you're comfortable with. So thanks very much, Dom. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Woohoo! Right back at you indeed. Well, there you go. Have it, folks. Head over to the wonderful site, chalkmoose.com. Snag a book or 50, maybe even 50,000 if you got the change or something for your corporation to definitely snag that wonderful book and embrace your creativity. So, any parting words before we close it out?
Well, just look at this year, no matter what problems you're having, look at it as an opportunity to rethink your life. This is it. This has been forced on us. Now take it as an opportunity to expand your thinking and to create a new life for yourself that's going to bring you greater happiness and greater success, no matter how you define it.
This is your host, Don Brightman. Hope you enjoyed what you just heard. And if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, wherever you're listening to. And subscribe to hear more because more is coming your way to advance you further than before.